Just outside, and my glasses are all fogged up.
Okay, we've got everybody. We ready to go, Kristen?
Yes, we are, Chair. We'll reconvene and then we'll start at item 3 on the open agenda, the Risen report.
Okay. So number 3 then is Risen report from the closed electoral area directors committee meeting. And who's going to do that? I saw Melanie nodding her head.
Would you like me to just do that? Yeah, so the Risen report
Yes,
is
please.
regarding an identifiable individual considered for an award or honor. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you very much. So can I get an approval of the agenda, please? Approved by Tony, seconded by Vivian. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. The special staff report, does that need to be read out, Kristen?
Thanks, Chair. You can just move it as shown on the agenda.
Okay. Moved by Sal, seconded by Tony. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Is there anything in the consent agenda that needs to be removed? Yeah, Vivian, go ahead.
I'd like to remove item 6.2.1, please, Chair, select funds.
Yeah, that's fine. Where would we put that, Melanie?
We could move that to 8.6.
Okay, I just want to write that down. 8.6. Okay, everything else is all right then? So let's move the consent agenda as amended. Moved by Sal, seconded by Vivian. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Business arising from the minutes. Do we have any? I don't believe so. Staff reports and other business. CAO verbal update.
Thank you, Chair. I just had a quick update to provide you. When we had the previous discussion regarding bylaw enforcement activities at prior EAD, it was noticed that members of the public filing those complaints were not receiving any feedback, and apparently some glitch occurred in our system. We typically have an automated response set up that thanks the members of the public for their submission and lets them know what the process is that's going to be followed. And that had gotten derailed. It's now been reinstated. And so members of the public are now being thanked and having their complaints acknowledged, along with the direction of what's going to happen subsequently. So I just wanted you to be aware of that. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Move receipt. Tony, and seconded by Vivian. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. 8.2, information report, emergency program annual report. Is Sarah going to speak to this at all?
I had thought we were going to have
Kristen,
Sarah
you know
here
if
to
Sarah's
speak to it
available?
today. But I don't see her in the waiting room.
I can text her if you'd like.
Yeah, it's an excellent report. So if nothing else, I'd just like to say thank you for that.
And I have a question for her. And yes, it's an excellent report.
Let's see if we can get a hold of her then. Do we want to move on to the next item and then come back when Sarah is available?
Sounds good.
Okay, let's do that then. Okay, 8.3, direction request, feasibility study, organic waste diversion options for electoral area A residents. Sal, do you have anything to comment on this? Hi, Angela. Sal, do you have a comment on this? It's in your area.
Yes, I do, Chair Mac. So after looking at this and going into the budgets that for our solid waste transfer station and also the Lillooet transfer station and looking at how much Area A constituents pay to both, it's quite a bit. So I definitely would like the waste study to happen, but I'm thinking I would rather fund it rather than having it in the budget. I would rather just fund it through the bill fund, $5,000. Try to keep the taxes down.
Okay. I see Angela's here. Do you have anything to add to this, Angela?
Thank you. Yes, Angela Belsham. I'm the Director of Environmental Services, and I'm here to support the staff report on the feasibility study. I will defer to Marie Lou any operational questions related to it. But Sal, as you mentioned, we did get some quotations for the feasibility study, which were from 9,780 to 10,500 for the feasibility study. And I think some of the important pieces that we wanted to highlight is that we're currently undergoing a feasibility study for the Lillooet landfill, as well as we do have consideration for a waste audit for the Goldbridge transfer station in the budget. And those two bits of work are going to be really important to complete first because they will help inform a feasibility study for the Goldbridge transfer station.
Yes, and that's why the study was $5,000 that was added to the budget. So that's what I would rather pay out of the bill fund. So if you wish, I can do a director report at the next board meeting stating that. That way I wouldn't rather not have it in the budget. And the other piece is, it's mentioned in that report that the organic feasibility study, there's leftover funding that could be used for that, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. So in cost center 1300, which was the regional solid waste budget, there are some funds that are earmarked for feasibility studies where that funding could be considered.
Okay, that's good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Melanie, then do we want to move this as it's written, or do we want to move it as amended?
Thank you, Chair. At this point, staff was just seeking direction. So if it is the committee's desire to move something, that could be done at this point instead of just receiving it. You could provide whatever type of direction you would like to the staff, and we'll action that and make sure it's dealt with. So Director Demers' ideas, for example, where he'd like to go with this could be.
Hey, Sal, would you like to make a motion in that respect?
I think it'd be better if I did a director report at the next board meeting to fund that $5,000 study. So basically, this is just a report. So to me, it would just receive the report, and then I could do a director report at the next board meeting.
Okay, well, then could I have a motion to receive? Tony, go ahead. You're on mute, Tony.
Is that better? There we go.
Yeah.
There's an option at the bottom of this report. And option number 1 is allocate up to 10,000 from cost center 1300, regional solid waste management. It would seem to me that if we want to do that, we need a resolution to that effect. The $5,000 that Sal is referring to is from a different cost center. And so that could come forward as a director's report from Sal at a later date. But assuming that the staff are looking for, want one of those options, then I would move option 1. Well, maybe
I would like to second that, Director Rainbow.
Well, could someone make a note of that, please? Vivian and I are working together. So.
Perfect. I like to see that.
I was going to withdraw my comments and suggest I should leave it to A and B to sort it out, but given that Area A is in agreement with Area D, I'll shut up. It's not that funny, Mary Lou. Okay,
so it's been moved and seconded. I'll call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
May I interrupt with the question along these lines, Chair Mack? I just want to confirm that what I heard was
absolutely good.
That the feasibility study in Area B, has that begun? Mary Lou, Angela, did I hear that?
Angela's nodding her head, so I believe it has.
Yeah, through the chair, we're currently working with the district of Lillooet on the feasibility study for the Lillooet landfill. We've engaged consultants on it, and we've had a kickoff meeting for the project, and the deliverables are currently underway.
Thank you very much. That's really good news.
So, sorry to interrupt. Chair Mack, sorry, I wanted to check with CAO Helmer. I don't have that motion having been passed yet. Or did I miss that, CAO Helmer?
I think he asked if there were any opposed. Everybody, he did that. Yes, so it's passed now.
Thank you. And that's a recommendation to the board.
That's correct.
Yeah. Okay, now we go to 8.4, I believe. Request for decision, development variance permit application number 157. And I'm going to move staff option 1, preferred option, approve the issuance of the permit as presented. Can I have somebody second that? Tony's going to second it. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Oh, you missed Kim there.
Thank you.
Oh, Kim's gone.
Do
Thank
you
you.
want, sorry, do you want her back?
Well, we just,
No, that's all right. I
We
think
just
we're
passed
fine.
it.
Okay, I'm going to let Suzanne in now, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
good morning, Suzanne.
Good morning. So are we ready for the
Good
budget
morning,
presentation?
Suzanne. We're all ready.
Okay. I am Suzanne LaFrance, Director of Finance, and I'm here today to go over the EAD preliminary budgets for 2021 and for the 5-year plan. So I have updated mostly the forecast figures, but I'll go through from the beginning of the notes, if that is okay with everybody. So these budgets use the
Yeah,
most
that's good.
recent.
Thank you.
Yep, they use the most recent 2021 completed rolls for apportionments. I will be discussing the non-market assessment changes at the February CAL meeting. And these have updated requisitions from last time. So the building inspections requisition is now increasing 26% to $237,845. This is a decrease of about $10,000 from last time you reviewed. And it's just due to the 2020 forecast figures being updated to the actual spend to date. And it includes the same staffing additions that were included last time. And it includes the 0.8% increase for CPI. And there weren't too many other changes for building inspections. So if anybody has any questions specifically on the building inspections budget, please let me know and I can answer them now.
I guess one question I have, with COVID and all the regulations surrounding it, how are we managing to get our inspections done?
I'm not sure if Melanie has information, but what I've known of, we purchased disposable kind of suits that they could wear to the inspections, and I believe it has to be a vacant. The owners have to leave while the inspection is taking place. That is my
Okay,
understanding.
thank you. Is there anything else, Melanie?
So thank you, Chair. There have been some safety protocols built into it, including the ones that Director LaFrance referred to, and also only one person allowed in a vehicle when they're moving to and from, and sanitization and sanitary measures entering and exiting premises. So there's been some consideration by that department head on making sure that the staff are adequately protected in completing the inspections.
Thank you. Carry on, Suzanne.
Okay. And I did skip over the civic addressing budget because that is exactly the same as was last time you viewed it. And the civic addressing budget is just carrying forward in case there is mapping updates, addressing updates that need to be completed. And if eventually, what would happen if we don't need these funds, we would just do a negative requisition and send them back to the taxpayers. But I don't plan on doing that for a few years in case there's addressing changes needed.
Yeah.
And the next budget would be the elections UBCM budget. And this hasn't changed. It's the same requisition amount as last time. And basically it's increased because we did have the Area A by-election and we have a 2022 full election happening. So we have to replenish those used reserve funds before 2022. Any questions on the UBCM? Seeing none, I'll go to the next budget, which is the emergency planning budget. So this budget has been adjusted for the previous resolutions using general select funds. So 10,000 of general select was used to offset the operating costs, so it'll decrease the requisition. And 6,118 was used from general select to be transferred to the reserve to meet the recommended guidelines as per the reserve policy. So those are shown in this new version. And I wanted to make note of the 5-year plan. So within the 5-year plan, we do include the fire chief starting in 2022. And it shows a full offset. So it doesn't actually affect the bottom line in 2022. We anticipate that offset to be the planning development fees, potentially mixed with recovery from the fire departments. And then in 2023 and on, it isn't a full offset. So this does show a slight expense to the emergency planning budget, as it's just offsetting with the fire departments at that point. So there will still be some offset for the fire chief's work on Britannia Beach Fire and Garibaldi Fire, the 2 fire departments of SLRD, because they will also be assisting with all of those transitions.
Suzanne, so this fire chief's position, this will be for all of the regional district, and what's this person's position going to be? Because every area has a fire chief. So is this individual going to just coordinate with the existing fire chiefs, or how's that going to work? I see Melanie's got her hand up.
Thank you, Chair. So this position will be clarified further towards the end of this year and brought back to the board for further consideration. It's in there as a placeholder at this point and only for future years. But the potential for this individual is more of a support role to be the person who has the inside knowledge of a working fire department and can support the changes that are needed to support development in the region, as well as any potential legislative changes that are needed and collaboration with municipal fire departments where that's required as well.
Thank you. Back to you. Oh, Sal, go ahead.
Yeah, this is for CAO Helmer. just on that topic, I know that the Gun Lake Fire Department and the Raylorn Fire Department they're their own societies, and the taxpayers contribute to it. Just curious if down the road, if we're going to be, those two, our communities are going to be paying into this fire chief. And I always thought from the conversations I've had that they're fully independent and we can't do anything with them.
Through the chair. So at this point, there's no plan to change those two fire departments unless there was an appetite on behalf of the fire departments and the members of those communities to look at a change, which we would then look at regardless of what happened with that position. So that's a separate discussion, and they're not currently, they're their own society and they're operating completely independently of us at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Back to Suzanne. Oh, Tony.
Just further.
Tony, go ahead.
Yeah, a little more on the fire chief. It seems to me that in Area D, that's the only place where we actually have fire departments that are SLRD fire departments. So would that fire chief then just be operating in Area D? Because when I look at the developments that are being proposed here, we need cooperation with Squamish, we need cooperation with Lions Bay, plus we need to improve and increase our own capabilities. So are we looking at a fire chief that basically at the moment is just for Area D?
I believe for 2022, that would be their main focus, mainly because of the development requirements for the increased fire protection.
Okay. Okay. But we'll learn more as we go ahead, how this might actually work out. Okay, thanks.
And yeah, in the 2022
Okay,
budget,
everybody's good. Suzanne, go ahead.
okay. And just to clarify that, yeah, within the 2022 budget, the offset would be the planning, development, amenity fees, potentially to cover the regional portion. So they would be working on Area D because of those development fees.
Right.
And the final budget, well, there's the select services budgets, and those have just been updated to reflect any changes in the actual 2020 forecast, but they're pretty standard. So I won't go through all those unless it's unless you want me to.
Did we do parks?
No, I was going through the select services ones and then going to parks. Yeah.
Yes, I can't see that.
Vivian?
Thank you. I had a couple of comments on 3,000 electoral area community parks, but I'm really grateful if you go through this slowly, Suzanne. I was following you up till that sidebar on electoral areas, and then I thought, oh, I'm lost. So where are we now?
I just mentioned that the select services budgets are also in this package, but they haven't changed, to just tweaked to actual, but we can jump right into 3,000 community parks. Because that one has had some changes. So this budget includes all of the additional parks that were added. So, and the assets for Gates Lake also is included here, because the portion that the village is managing is not the asset portion, if that makes sense. So all of the fixed assets are in this cost center. And so it includes the the Seton Park, and we've removed the Texas Creek Park project from this. And I do have a request for just some attention to be placed on some of the resolutions that have been for funding certain projects that have gone over the funding allowance. So the Britannia Beach dock, there was a funding portion of $5,000, and apparently it's been taking more time than was initially proposed. And so currently the time allocation is totaling about 8,290. So I'm wondering if we want to propose a new resolution for allocating that overage of 3,290 to be used from Area D amenity funds, and potentially the 2021 funding as well. So that would be for the Britannia Beach dock. And then the same issue with the Anderson Lake dock maintenance. So in my discussions with the Parks and Trails coordinator, she's requesting that there is an annual maintenance budget for the Anderson Lake dock, and she was requesting up to $3,000 a year. So I do have that in the budget, but I just wanted to point that out. You don't necessarily need a resolution if it's in the budget, as that's a bylaw being set already, but I just don't want to just hide it in there and not have the EADs recognize that there's amenity fund usage in the budget currently. So there's options to create a resolution to fund these projects. So like I mentioned, the Britannia Beach dock for 2020 and then 2021. For the 2021 portion for the Britannia Beach dock, sorry, I just have to refresh my memory here. I do not have an amount in there as yet, but so for the Britannia Beach dock, potentially we'll have to go back to the staff who's in charge of that project to see what they feel their time allocation might be, depending on where that project stands, because I don't have that information.
Tony, go ahead.
So Suzanne, just so I can be clear on this, the $3,290.08 is an amount that has already been spent basically on staff time. So you need a resolution to cover that.
Yeah, I think that would be preferable, yeah.
Okay. And then at some point, maybe not today, but at some point, you'll need a further resolution for funding for 2021.
Mm-hmm.
But that can wait until you have a number for me. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't know where that project stands, like I said, and I'm not sure who's handling it, but yeah, we can add that to the budget for an amount that they believe they require, but I don't have that information.
Do you need a resolution to that effect then? Let me make two. Let me first of all make a resolution.
I think that you can make an up to resolution to whatever you feel is comfortable, and then whatever their time allocation is, once it reaches that point, I'll have to relay it back to you. But I think if you just state that it's an up to certain amount of funding that you're comfortable with.
Sure. So we'll do them separately. So the first one would be a resolution to approve $3,290.08 from Area D amenities to cover the staff time in 2020.
I can second that, Chair Matt.
Okay, thank you. Call a question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Okay. Secondly, then, Suzanne, that total of 8,290, was that just a 1 year expenditure, a 1 year cost?
Portion of it was from 2019, so $840 was from 2019.
I'm just trying to pick a number that would be reasonable. If I said up to 10,000, that would cover it.
That should be covered. Yeah, that should cover it.
Okay, so my second motion then is that up to $10,000 be allocated from Area D amenities for the Britannia costs of staff costs for Britannia Beach Dock for 2021.
Great.
I'll second that. Okay. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried.
Great. Thanks very much, Suzanne.
Okay, Suzanne, so now we're on the Anderson Lake dock. So we're in the same position there, are we?
Yeah, so it just went very slightly over, and it's not material, but in 2020 we spent 3,037, and the
Right.
amount approved was for 3,000. So
So
for
you need
that,
a resolution for $37 then?
we can, yes.
Yep. Well, I'll make that resolution. Tony will second it.
Well, only
I'll
if
call the question. All in
Are you-
favor, opposed, motion carried.
you sure you can afford it?
I hope so. I might be short on the 21 cents.
Ah,
So now we need another resolution then for the additional funding of up to $3,000 per year for annual maintenance. And I would make that resolution, and that's coming out of Area C amenity funds. Is that correct?
Yeah, we were using the Wedgwood's Area C amenity funds, which is specific to recreation only. And
Okay, I would like to make a resolution to that effect, and I'll move that. And Tony's going to second it. And yeah, I'll call the question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you. Okay, Suzanne, we're back to you.
okay. So with the
Vivian's got her hand up. I'll just check. Vivian, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair Mac. Two small comments for Suzanne just before we leave parks. Thank you very much for removing Texas Creek Park and references to Texas Creek Park for future. You have a question about the Seton Park Electoral Area B Director could change these to be funded out of the Area B PILT funds if deemed desirable. The Area B Parks Reserve balance, is that what I'm seeing at the bottom of my Area B Select funds?
Yeah, so at the end of 2020, sorry, let me double check if it's 2020 or 2021. Just want to say something. Sorry, at the end of 2021, it shows a $14,000, 756 and 38 cents balance for the Area B Parks Fund. We were using the Area B Parks Fund versus PILT because the Parks Fund specifically is for parks versus PILT, which can be more anything. So that's why we were using the Area B Parks, but there's always that option to use the PILT as well.
I really appreciate being asked that question. And I think right now using the Parks Fund is okay, but I appreciate the opportunity to have that choice. So thank you, Suzanne.
So that would be the discussion I had available for the EAD budgets. I think at this point, the EAD committee can move these budgets if they feel comfortable with all the requisition levels. I will adjust the Area B, the Community Parks Fund for the Britannia Beach dock using the amenity funds because that is not in there currently. But
Okay.
everything else, I believe, is ready to be approved if the EAD committee so wishes. And then I wouldn't have to bring them back in March.
Okay, yeah, Tony, go ahead.
One question, Suzanne. If something came up in the next 2 or 3 weeks where we wanted to make a change, could we still do that?
Yeah, well, in that case, maybe we should just bring them back in March if there's anticipated additional information.
Yeah, I think I prefer that. But
Okay, that's fine. Do we need a motion for that, Melanie? Vivian?
Thank you, Chair. I think that Director Birch Jones had something as well, if you wanted, before we
Yeah,
go
I
to a
did see
motion.
your hand there. Yep. Vivian, go ahead. You're on mute, Vivian.
no, she's not.
Thanks, Chair Mac. I just saw under Exhibit 1761, Emergency Planning Project, there's over $1 million applied for. And I was impressed with the amount of grants we're applying for. Were any of those ones that CAO Helmer referenced that we've been successful? Was that anyway, I just, I know Sarah made reference to applying for some grants too, and I'm just watching the wildfire prescriptions in Area B and making sure that I'm funded adequately. Page 71, I'm trying to find the place. 50,000 on page 71, potential Area B wildfire mitigation project.
Looking at that.
Through the chair, there are most of the 2021 funds. We are still awaiting answers on what the outcomes will be, and we expect to know shortly. Thank you, Chair.
Okay. Thank you. And then if I may find my other question on page 75. Just on page 75, when we're talking about the portal identification in Area B, there's a few discrepancies about where those funds are showing up, and I perfectly happy to just walk it through with Suzanne independently. If we look at page 75, it shows still $3,502.73 in portal identification Area B, but we know that we've spent some money on that this year, and I'm just wondering when that balance will reflect the almost $2,000 that was spent.
Yeah, we can go through that because I'm kind of confused by your comment. I know that there was a funding change where originally some funding was placed in 2902, and then we moved that to 2900. So it was originally in Area B, and that has been moved to Select Fund, the General Select. So you'll see a credit in your Area B Select because originally we had posted it there. And then in 2021, it was moved to General Select. If that is what you're talking about. Remember, we found there was additional portal funding.
So no, that's great. Thank you. I just, because that portal identification fund is specifically for signage, and that's what we did was signage at the portals. But when I look at this page now, it shows still $3,500 in the balance. So it's just taking a while to catch up.
It might be posted in 2021 because the resolution wasn't until 2021. I believe we just did that in January.
Thank you.
I think that's what the discrepancy is.
Okie doke.
Just a question from myself about the Area B signage. I've had a question asked from Ponderosa people on the Highline Road. There's a new Area B sign that's been installed on the Highline Road, and apparently it's in Area C, not in Area B. So if you want to move it, or if you want to contribute to all their fire equipment, that would be very nice.
Oh my, you know, the highways, the staff turned those signs over to highways, and there was a new fellow, and he was actually phoning me at home for some guidance on where some Area B is such an octopus. I'm not the least bit surprised that they've crept into areas to sign. No, I don't want to change the boundaries, Chair Mac. Let's fix that. And I've already given them some chocolates for all their work putting up my signs. So between you and I, Chair Mac, let's fix that. I think I know the person to talk to.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Because I know that the person that contacted me will be contacting me again. So thank you.
As soon as the weather and the opportunity allows. I did see also on page 81, and this is, again, maybe I hope I'm not quibbling, but the Pavilion Lake Ratepayers Association and Squilix, the fuel mitigation controlled burns being undertaken at Pavilion Lake. We did fund some money last year towards that specific budget, and but it's not changed in this balance that I'm seeing here.
It's potentially because we haven't received the information. So we can only post when we receive the invoices. So I'll get all of those old resolutions. I'll get Annie to follow up on when we have some time. Right now, we're pretty much full on with the financials and the budgets and the upgrades to the financial systems.
Tony, go ahead. You're on mute, Tony.
Can't you lip read? What's the matter with you?
I'm
Anytime
gonna have to learn.
anytime we have budget discussions at EAD or at the board meeting, I find it incredibly difficult to keep track of where we are. Vivian was talking about page 75. She must be on the PDF version of the budget. I don't have any page numbers on the HTML one. So I have two suggestions. If we can number the pages in the HTML version of the budget, that would help. Or if when we're talking about budget items, we refer to the line number. And then it's like scroll through and find it. It's just really awkward when we've got those two versions, and some of us are on one version and some on the other. Or we could say everybody's got to be on the PDF. I think I can probably do that. So that's just an aside from the current discussion, but that's something I think we need to resolve. Thank you.
Kristen, and then Vivian.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to, and I hope this is helpful since we are talking about it. Director Birch-Jones, on page 81 of your select funds, the up to 2,000 towards installation and material costs for refurbishing. In January, we passed the motion in January to rescind that and to move it to general select. I hope helps. So that's just come through and it just hasn't been reflected yet. It's still showing up on page 81. But once Suzanne implements that, because that's been rescinded and moved to cost center 29. Does that help you, Suzanne?
It certainly helps me.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So I was just looking to see if we needed to do that motion, but it was oddly familiar, but we did that last month and it just hasn't caught up.
Now,
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm with Tony. I was lost when Vivian was mentioning these page numbers because I use the HTML. And I also download this file also from the HTML. I download it, then I can make my comments on it. And there are numbers, there's page numbers on it. Like this one here's got 44 pages on it. And that way I've got a record of it and I make comments on it and I've got my comments on it. So, and it's similar with the board. We've got people using HTML and people using the agenda. So somehow we got to get around it so that we're all on this, using the same product, we're on the same page numbers, whether it's the HTML or the PDF version like I download, or the PDF version of the agenda. Just makes it hard. I like the HTML because that's what I use. But I do download all this, some of the pertinent ones, into my computer, so I've got history of it, look back at.
Okay, Suzanne, you ready to go again?
That's all of the comments so far. So we'll bring it back in March, and that will be the last budget meeting for these budgets.
So
Okay, thank
do
you.
you need a motion to receive or something then? Or-
Yeah,
Yeah, I'll move that.
that was the question I was just going to ask. But so that moved by Tony, seconded by Sal. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you, Suzanne.
Chair Mac, we have item 8.6, the select funds report that was moved.
Where's that?
Correct. So do we need Suzanne for that one? Vivian?
No, it's fine. We'll just drop. I can follow up on my individual questions in my own time. No, we don't need to do that. Thank you.
So we'll
Okay,
need a
thank you.
motion, we'll need a motion to receive it then, won't we? Or-
Yes, we will. Thank you.
Motion to receive.
I'll second.
Okay, seconded by Tony. Call a question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you.
And
Now we are at,
my apologies, Chair. I need to step away for 10 minutes.
okay, well, let's, do we still have a quorum then? Or do we want to take a 10-minute break?
Well, Sal, I think Sal's got a problem right now, haven't you, Sal? Yeah. Sal has to declare a conflict right now.
Yeah,
So let's
we're
wait till we
not
come
gonna-
back.
So we'll take 10 minutes?
let's take a 10-minute break. We'll be back in 10 minutes.
Okay,
Is that okay with you, Vivian?
she's gone.
Okay, everybody, we'll be back here at 5 after 11.
Got it.
Okay?
Thank you, Russell. If I
Are
don't
we
keep
all
the,
back here?
if I don't keep the
Oh.
fire going today, I'm mud.
Yeah, you got to do your chores. Is Tony back? Okay, Sal, on this next one, you're going to step aside. Okay, and Vivian's going to speak to it on your behalf. Yeah, go ahead, Melanie.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to let you know that Ms. Morgan is available if you would like to go back to the annual report from the Emergency Services Department and review that item.
Yeah, let's do this one here. I guess we can't do it until we get Tony back, can we? Then let's just go back to that report, and we'll come back to this as soon as Sarah's finished. Is that all right with doing that?
Yeah, I'll admit her, Chair. Thank you.
Okay, very good. Hello, Sarah.
Good morning, Chair. Morning, all.
Thanks for being here. It's an excellent report you've done. We just like you to go through it for us and give us the highlights. It was very well done.
Certainly, it would be a pleasure. I think in terms of overall tone of the year, COVID and both the organizational and community response to COVID colored the entire year. But at the same time, I think this report shows that an awful lot of other things happened as well as our response to COVID, and highlights the work of the whole staff. And also in particular, I wanted to, as the report says, put a spotlight on our volunteer fire services. I've highlighted the two that we directly manage, but recognizing the work of all volunteer firefighters and the significant contribution of community fire suppression groups as well, and the key role that they play in community safety. So that's why I've devoted some column inches to that in our annual report, because I do see the pivotal role that they play beyond also direct structural fire response, highlighting medical response, road rescue in this report as well. I think another thing that comes through in terms of the pie chart and the grant and funding summary is the extent to which protective services portfolio of responsibilities is expanding. So it is expanding quite rapidly beyond the traditional mitigation, preparedness, response, recovery kind of framework to a number of other areas as well in terms of organizational responsibility. And noting that from 2021, looking at that climate change and resilience piece as well. Happy to take any questions.
Well, I'd just like to thank you, like I say, for a great report and the great job you're doing. Vivian, go ahead.
Thank you, Sarah Morgan. It was a great report. It's great work. You likely know that Ticket Reserve over 2 years ago started some work on 911 service. And at that time, it was Linda Flynn as CAO, and now politics here are such that that community has separated from the tribal council. I know tribal council is doing a lot of footwork on 911 for the on reserve populations, but I'm wondering about that inquiry and the work with the SLRD that ticket was on, if you have
Sure.
enough.
Yeah, so through you, Chair, that the ticket has also had a change of staff in terms of my equivalent there. Sean Scotchman has left, and I've made contact with his replacement in that role. They have done all their mapping, and they would like to come under the SLRD as a 911 contract, as a subcontract. And we have provided them with a draft contract for their consideration. But a key piece that's missing from that contract currently is the pricing. And the reason why the pricing is an unknown and a complicated factor at the moment in moving that agreement forward is next generation 911 considerations. So our providers for 911 don't have clarity about what those costs are. They were expecting to have that clarity by now, but COVID has delayed things because it has so affected call volumes in the last year. And they're expecting those effects to continue on into this year. So they're thinking it might be another year or a little more than that before they really understand their, the sort of considerations for 911 calls that will affect pricing, such as the length of the call, how these, different data packets with next generation 911, conducting 911 calls through like text options. There's some things that are known from the earlier rollout in the States, but they don't have certainty on that pricing. So they can't provide us with certainty on that pricing, which in turn, it's a little bit of a rolling ball in terms of us moving that forward in a fair way with Cleakit. I've also said to them that they can choose to contract directly, and I've spoken to Daryl Adrian about this in terms of the LTC, that they don't have to come under the SLRD contract. They can, of course, contract directly, but the stated preference at the moment is to subcontract. So we need to work out those considerations. And then a further consideration, looking at First Nations more broadly coming under us as a subcontract, is that they use some different agencies, like tribal police, for instance. So we would need to work with ECOM, RDCO, as to how we price that and work that in terms of communities where there's tribal police response and communities where there isn't. Some communities have their own volunteer fire service capacity, some don't. So working out that part of it as well, and how we price that, and how we price in administering the contracts in a fair way as well. Sorry, a bit of a long answer, but that's where we're at.
It's complicated. Thank you very much.
Any other questions for Sarah? No, seeing none. Well, thank you very much. Like I said, that was a great report, and keep up the good work. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you, directors. I really appreciate your support. And as you fund the program, obviously in a very material way as well. I'm very grateful.
You're very welcome.
Thank you.
Would you like a motion to receive the report?
Did we not already do that?
No, we waited.
Okay, yeah, motion to receive, moved by Director Birch Jones and seconded by Director Demare. Call the question, all in favor, opposed, motion carried. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And now we move on to 9.2. Estelle, go ahead.
I think we're moving to 9.1.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
I'll have to declare a conflict of interest due to my wife being engaged with the BRVCA, and also my daughter as the bookkeeper for the BRVCA.
Roger. Thank you. Kristen, will you put Sal in the waiting room then, please? Thank you. Vivian, were you going to speak to this on both of your behalf then?
I would be glad to. It is a shared program led by the Bridge River Valley Community Association. I think all the information is in the report, or in the background. Could I make the motion to commit $1,000 from Area A Select Funds and $3,500 from Area B Select Funds for additional hours and an hourly rate increase of the 2021 NDIT grant writer position, please?
Okay, so you're going to move it. I'll second it. I'll call the question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. We can bring Sal back into the picture. Hello, Sal. You're back. Okay, 9.2. Do you want to speak to this, Vivian?
Sure. The letter is there, and the Pavilion Lake residents are requesting funding of $2,250 from Electoral Area B Select Funds. I would like to move that for the purchase of the new 2-inch centrifugal pump and related equipment necessary to support community efforts in the event of a fire emergency. I'll make that motion.
Tony seconds it. I'll call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. And that is the centrifugal pump.
Thank you, Chairman.
There we go. I just got to get my screen set up here properly. Okay, so now we have, is there any decision on late business? Is there any late business? Melanie, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Chair. There is late business. The item that was emailed to you this morning that you said was okay for us to add, this would be the place to put it, which was the report from Director Rainbow.
Correct. You want to talk to that,
And
Tony?
my apologies.
Yeah, Kristen, go ahead.
Sorry, Chair. First, we need a motion to add it, and then we can consider it. Sorry, the
Okay,
committee can consider it. Thanks.
I'll move it. You will second it. Call a question. All in favor? Opposed? Motion carried. Do you want to speak to this, Tony? You're on mute.
There we go. I think it's self-explanatory in a way. This is the trail that we contributed to last year when they had to fly in an excavator to correct a situation at one creek. This particular creek, I was talking to the guy about it. He said that most of the year, or a large part of the year, you can cross it safely. But at certain times of the year, it's somewhat dangerous to try to ford the stream. So they want to put a footbridge there. The trail's being used more and more. It's in Area D. It gets a lot of usage from Squamish residents and from tourists. So yeah, it's a safety issue on that trail, and I would like to support it. You've got, if you're interested in seeing where it is, there's photographs that they submitted to me of bits of it and bits of what they want to do.
Okay, so you're gonna move it?
Yep.
I'll second it. I'll call a question. All in favor, opposed, motion carried.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, Sal, go ahead.
That trail is an interesting one. I have a friend of mine that has property up here that is part of search and rescue down in Squamish. And he said that they had to go up there a couple of times this year, up to that lake area. And and he said the amount of traffic, like we know, it almost tripled the amount of people that go to that lake now since the COVID
that's
started.
amazing.
Yeah.
I think our whole area is experiencing the same thing.
Yeah, and it's great that there are sort of volunteer groups like BC Mountain Club, Mountaineering Club. There's one out of Squamish called Squamish Activity Society, so SAS anyway, and they do an awful lot of trail building and so on around the area. So it's I think we're going to see more and more requests for financial support for that kind of activity, especially down in through the area just north and south of Squamish.
Very good. So now we are on to, I believe it's director's notice of motion. Is that correct? I'm thinking I missed something, but I think that's where we're at. Is there anything? I don't believe. Kristen's nodding her head. What does that mean? Nothing. Okay. Okay, and the next part of this event is Tony's favorite part. Number 13, adjournment.
Yep.
I'll second that. Call the question. All in favor? Opposed? We are adjourned. Thank you very